Quiet Sunset by Fizzles Anon. You heard of this holiday. Heck, you lived through Valentine's Day enough back on Earth. It's the same thing. Hearts and Hooves Day. You already expected to spend it mostly alone. For the first time, it didn't bother you much. You were one of the castle guards, and one of the few who didn't complain about working on that day. You didn't have any special anything. Why steal the day from someone who did? You stood watch, spear in hand. Seeing the ponies be loving to each other was downright adorable. It was a welcome distraction from the empty room you were headed back to. And come on, the color for ponies being cute. You had to smile. You sneak a peek at the clock tower. Almost time for the guard change. Thank God, your legs are killing you when you're starving. The bells begin to ring and your replacement shows up. He has a letter in his mouth with a heart sticker for a seal. "Letter for you," he says as the letter falls from his mouth onto the ground. "I didn't know you felt that way, Stonehoof." He snorts and gives you a dirty look. "Not from me, dolt, but I'm not to say from who." "Why not?" He takes his position, writes his spear, and goes silent. You won't get a word from him in a while. You chuckle and tear open the note. Well, this is unexpected. It's a very elegant love note. It went into great detail about how much they were pinning for you, how much they watch you at your post every day and hope you happen to glance their way, etc., etc. It even got a little intimate regarding how you looked in your custom uniform. Whomever wrote it neglected to leave a name. Just that if you wished to have a special sun pony that starts on Hooves Day, to meet them on the west observation balcony after your shift. You flipped the paper over looking for any more information, but there was nothing else. You're more curious than anything else, trying to deduce who might have done this. The handwriting was far too neat to be anything but a unicorn. Sadly, that doesn't narrow things down much in Camelot. There were some aides you ran into on a more regular basis. None of them seemed all that impressed with you. The tailor was a nice mare, but she was pretty old and joked far too much during your uniform fitting to feel this strongly. It very well could be a prank, between that serpent thing coming into the palace and the guards messing with each other from time to time. You unfold the letter and tuck it back into your pocket. You have 2 more rotations to think about it. Right now you were starving, and you only had half an hour to take care of that. You eat and go back to standing watch, and the rest of your day goes by pretty uneventfully. You get to watch more ponies be romantic in the square, all the while contemplating who gave you that note. By the time your shift ends, you're pretty convinced it's a prank. Stonehoof would have never brought a letter to you from any mare, even one of the high-ranking nobles. In fact, especially from them, he sooner would have eaten it. The bells chime as the sun sets, the day coming to an end. Your replacement arrives. You turn over your post and consider going straight home. You didn't really feel like getting a pie to the face or a bucket of water dumped on your head. But then again, it might end with you getting the heck out of here and having a few cold ones with those guys. They were the closest thing you had to friends after all. They weren't trying to be mean. Just playful before dragging you kicking and screaming to the pub. Shrugging, you make your way to the west balcony. Still in your uniform, you see some ponies there. All of them are couples, oohing and ahhing at the city at night. You smile and enjoy the view yourself, while looking around for any unicorns who might be alone, or any off-duty guard ponies who might be trying to hide a grin. You find neither and sit down on the bench. Maybe this wasn't a prank and the pony got cold feet. Hooves? You lean back on the bench. The sun had set a few moments ago, but the sky was still painted pink and purple, the moon slowly shining through. You exhale the crisp night air and relax. If anything, whoever wrote that note gave you an excuse to enjoy the scenery. You owe them for that. You hear the faint sound of hooves on marble, and out of the corner of your eyes you see ponies look surprised and begin to bow. That could mean only one of 3 ponies making their way onto the balcony. You try and gauge who, just from the hoof steps. Not Luna, she wouldn't walk that slow. Not Cadence either. She was a lot heavier on her hooves. That only left... You quickly turn around. A few feet from the bench, Princess Celestia is sliding towards a balcony ledge. She sees you and smiles, her warm, pleasant features causing you to smile back. Begin to kneel, but she shakes her head. "No need for that, Anon. I know you've had a long day." "Thank you, Princess Celestia." You respectfully lower your head and take a few steps back, offering the bench if she wanted it. She continues to the railing, looking over the city. It's coming alive with the lights as the city darkens in the night. With her standing before it, it's quite beautiful. "What brings you here by yourself, Anon?" she asks, her tone in no way mocking or snide considering the day, but a genuine question. You decide to join her at the railing looking over the city. The view is breathtaking, and you wonder why you never came up here. "I was supposed to meet someone, but they never showed up." "Oh?" She looks to you, still smiling warmly, but with a hint of concern in her eyes. You chuckle a little and would have stopped right there. But something about her presence makes you keep talking. "I got a note this afternoon. It was some secret admirer who wanted me to meet them here. They haven't shown up yet. Starting to think they're not going to." You leave out that you think this was a joke, and the only reason you didn't have a pie on your head is because the princess is next to you. "But if you don't know whom they are, how would you know they didn't show up?" She makes a good point, but as you look around the balcony another time, "All the ponies here are couples, Your Majesty." She looks herself, and then turns the attention back to the city. Her hair is blowing in its usual fashion, matching the colors of the sky from a moment ago. Her white coat and regalia is shining brightly against the night, and as always, she smiled, as if the sun was still bathing in her warm light. You can't believe it, but up until that moment, you never noticed how magnificent she was. I believe you're right, Anon. We're the only ones out here by ourselves this evening." She doesn't turn to face you, but continues to look towards the city below. You follow her gaze down to the town square. It's hard to make it out, but there were 2 ponies under a lamppost. They were hugging or kissing or something like that, but you were too far away to tell. For the first time that day, you actually feel a little lonely. "She probably changed her mind, or maybe some stallion asked her out before she could get here." You force a chuckle and look into the night sky. She could have very well been that mare down there by the lamppost, for all you know. Wouldn't that have been a coincidence? "Perhaps she did, but may I offer a different explanation, Anon?" You nod, turning back to the Princess of the Sun. She is still watching the couple down below. "Perhaps she has not felt this way for a long time and is slightly worried about opening her heart up again?" You rub your chin. It was a slightly more comforting theory, you'll give her that. But before you could reply, Celestia continued. "And maybe when she arrived, she realized she wasn't quite ready yet. That she needed more time to work up the courage to follow through with her feelings." Hard to argue with that. "Yeah, I guess you're right. Wish I knew who it was, though." "With luck, she saw you standing here waiting, and knows she can approach you when she's ready, that you're not the type to ignore someone who has feelings for you." Celestia finally turns back to you. Her eyes are shining in the moonlight. For a moment, loneliness, thoughts of home, and every other negative feeling you had that day melted away. Her gaze, her demeanor, her smile, they all warmed your heart like the sun warmed the earth. This wasn't the first time she'd comforted you. Your first night at Equestria, she had insisted on talking to you throughout the night, never once leaving you alone. It was a great help. You remember how much you thanked her when it dawned on you how important that was for you. No small surprise you wanted to join her guard when it came time to make a living for yourself. How far you've come since. And here you were, talking to her about something trivial by comparison. She had the same peaceful expression as that night, as if your problems were just as important. The world seemed so quiet, as if it was just the 2 of you. You and the princess, enjoying a cute fantasy about this mystery mare. It was almost ridiculous to imagine she'd entertained so much of this. But this must have been a welcome break for her too, from all the royal duties and other responsibilities she has day to day. Just to hear a very simple problem. One with a simple, reassuring answer. "Thank you, Princess Celestia. I feel a lot better now." She nods and continues to smile at you. But before long, she turns back to the castle. "I must take my leave now, Anon. It's been a pleasure talking with you." You nod and say the same. She begins to trot back to the entrance. You watch her go, chuckling quietly as the small crowd of ponies she drew darts like a colorful sea. But before she gets far, she stops and turns back to you. "Anon." "Yes, Princess Celestia?" You tilt your head slightly. You swear her normal, calm, composed demeanor is different. It's very subtle, but, well, she's standing there still, tall and majestic as always. Her eyes are slightly averted from yours, and she always makes eye contact when she speaks. "Perhaps tomorrow, if you care to meet me here again, we might chat about something more amiable?" You smile, slightly flattered that she would ask you to meet her again. But at least the circumstances would be a little more enjoyable. "Of course, Princess." Her eyes meet yours again, restoring her usual poise. "Till tomorrow, then. Have a pleasant evening, Anon." "You too, Princess Celestia." You see the warm smile of hers one final time before she returns to the castle. As she walks away, she exhales, as if she was still holding her breath. The next day is probably the longest rotation you've ever had. Your mind is racing as you stand guard. On one hand, any unicorn who eyes you for more than a moment makes you wonder if they're the mystery mayor. On the other, you have a meeting right after work. You have no idea what to talk about. What do you even talk to the goddess of the sun about? Heck, even, "How was your day?" is practically a loaded question. "Hey, Beanstalk, shifts up." You snap back to Equestria, whatever. Stonehoof is there to relieve you. "You daydreaming on watch?" "No, sir, just focused." "You must be thinking about that ridiculous letter I had to bring you. Heard she stood you up. Why I married this job instead of a mayor." He scoffs, and you and him exchange positions. You don't bother to argue with him, it never goes anywhere. And once he's in position, he takes his work very seriously. You bid him good day and head for the west balcony. The sunset is more brilliant than yesterday. Red color leaps from the horizon, and overhead the sky is a canvas of orange and gold. Celestia really outdid herself tonight. Something nice must have happened to her. Maybe you could talk to her about that. You arrive at the balcony. The air is just as cool as last night. The sunset's still bathing the world in color, now more blues and purple as the sun slips below the hilltops. It must have been a really nice day for her. You smile and make your way to the bench you sat on last time. Odd. The balcony is empty. It's a huge observation area, and even on a slow day there are usually half a dozen ponies out here to watch the sunset. Not today, though. You're the only one there. Maybe there is a speech or a festival you didn't hear about. You shrug and take a seat. It's not long before you hear the familiar sound of gold horseshoes on marble. When they approach you, you stand and turn around. Like last time, she stops you before you can do more than lower your head. Princess Celestia is before you, her expression bright as the sun she controls. Her regalia sparkling in the light of her sunset. They look freshly polished. Her mane blowing calmly, her eyes meeting yours with their usual tenderness. "Good evening, Anon." She smiles. You smile back. "Good evening, Princess. You outdid yourself tonight. The sky looks gorgeous." She laughs gently, looking to the sky. Even her laughter is a soothing melody. "I may have placed slightly more effort into it tonight. I'm glad you appreciate it, Anon." She says something else, but very quietly. Far too quiet for you to hear. Before you have a chance to ask her what she said, a small basket levitates from behind her, and she sits down on the bench. You look at the basket questioningly. "I had a light lunch and felt we could both use something to eat. Care to join me, Anon?" You nod and follow her to the bench, sitting down after she does. Her magic is as graceful as she is. The basket unpacks itself slowly, and small plates are filled with a few pastries before it floats to your lap. She does the same for herself, taking an identical assortment of goodies from her picnic basket. She floats her plate to herself. You and her both seem fixated on each other's dish. Neither of you actually eating anything. Oh no. You're playing polite chicken. "Try the dark chocolate one. It has coconut in the middle." She wins. You nod and smile, taking the chocolate from the plate and having one bite. It's as good as she says. Like a Mounds bar back home, but all the ingredients taste fresh and delicious. You find yourself chewing slower than normal, just to enjoy every bit of the sweet. She smiles and takes the same candy, eating it in a similarly slow fashion. "That's really good. Do they make those here?" She nods, not one to speak with her mouth full. You're still happy she didn't take the candy with a fork, especially after you snatched it up with your hands. "So, Anon, how was your day?" You think for a moment before you reply. It'd be a little awkward if you complained about your job, considering the entire function is to serve her. And she had been the one to insist that you were allowed to join. But how much can you really talk about standing at attention with a spear in your hand? "It was okay, normal day, nothing big happened." You quickly grab another pastry and munch on it before she can ask for more specifics. "I'm glad to hear that, Anon." She gently wipes her mouth with a silk napkin before returning her attention to you. Her eyes are radiating kindness, with a slight hint of expectation, waiting for you to continue. You feel bad you gave such a lackluster answer and decide to make up for it. You tell a much more detailed version of the day's events. from the relief of the night watch when you'd arrived to the conversation you've had with Stonehoof before you arrived, and every little detail in between. Not once did she have a bad thing to say, or anything but a kind word of suggestion sometimes. But what really struck you was how she enjoyed listening. It's almost as if you were reciting poetry or telling an amazing tale and she wanted to hear every word. The pastries went untouched until I finally said, "And then I came here to meet you." She chuckled and suggested another one of the treats for you to try. You nod and take what turns out to be a miniature apple turnover. It tastes every bit of manners you were ever taught to not gobble it. She seems to notice your plight and giggles. Her pastry floats to her mouth and she pops the entire thing in her mouth. You follow in suit, joining her in laughter. She's just full of surprises tonight. "So, Anon, do you agree with Stonehoof?" "Not all of them are good." You swallow, thinking hard about the answer to that. She waits patiently, not once giving you the impression she wanted to know, right now. Her eyes were so gentle, her smile so calming. You feel like the worst thing you could do now is to disappoint her. But the only way you could do that is to not answer truthfully, you feel. "I don't think so. That's why I came here last night. If I didn't want a special someone in my life, I wouldn't have." Her smile brightens so subtly you might not have been paying such close attention. You would have missed it. "I think Stonehoof hasn't had any luck in that department, so he was just annoyed. It was Hearts and Hooves Day yesterday, and he's probably still a little mad about it." And just like that, her smile faded. "That note might not have helped matters. To deliver good news to someone else while you've remained alone must have been difficult." She turned to the city, looking away from you. "I should send him something. Reward for all his years of service. Something to brighten his spirits a little." You sit down your plate and lean closer. Her expression, her tone of voice. Like last night, it was hard to pick up her demeanor when it changed, but did she feel guilty? Why would she feel guilty about this? "Princess, are you okay?" She closed her eyes and sighed very gently. And in an instant, she was back to normal, her features returning to the warm, motherly figure you've known since your very first night. "Yes, I'm sorry. I was lost in an old memory. I apologize, Anon. It happens from time to time." She turned to you with her usual smile, but for the very first time in the months you've known her, you didn't buy it. She notices your look of doubt and turns back to the city. Her own plate levitates back into the basket, the rest of the food following. "My sister has done a wonderful job tonight. Wouldn't you agree, Anon?" You don't answer. In fact, you don't even turn to look at the city. You keep your gaze on her. She's still smiling, still maintaining her normal composure, but her eyes give it away. There is a sadness there, as if something went wrong, but she didn't seem to address it. "Princess?" She closes her eyes, and you hear the basket claps lock. She begins to gather herself from the bench, standing with a shaky sigh. One by one, her hooves land on the marble. "I'm sorry to end this abruptly, Anon, but there's something I must attend to." She's standing and beginning to make her way to the exit, moving slightly quicker than usual. You had only a few more seconds before she left. Who sent that note to me?" She freezes. Her wings tighten against her body, and her head lowers a second before she makes eye contact again. Her features tremble slightly. You feel terrible, worried you might be responsible for her sudden changes in mood. But throughout it all, she keeps that warm, quiet smile. I really need to take my leave, Anon." Her eyes are pleading with you to let her go. It was your turn to give a warm, reassuring smile. Little by little, the events from last night connect, and you understand exactly what she was talking about the night before. "Would you like to meet here tomorrow, after my watch has ended?" Her smile changes from the shaky veil of happiness to one of relief. I'd like that very much, Anon." She bows her head to you, and you return the gesture. Without another word, she takes her leave, returning to the castle, her basket of sweets floating gently behind her. You watch her go, admiring her grace and beauty as she re-enters the hall. The guards on the other side of the door see you and look away, back towards the city. That explains why the palace was deserted. She wanted privacy. Just the stars, the view, and you. Clever, princess. You hear the doors close behind you. The wind from the west blows a gust of cool night air across your body. You shiver, suddenly aware of how cold it was outside without Celestia's warmth around you. You stay for a few minutes, though, admiring the view from the balcony, watching the ponies go about their nights, seeing happy couples go to and from the restaurants on the main streets. Another breeze encourages you to head back inside. But before you leave, you whisper quietly to the city below. It's a date, then. Alrighty, guys, thank you so much for listening. That was the first part of Quiet Sunsets. There should be one more, maybe two more parts. But I have a question for you guys. Please leave your answer down in the comments. Should I do long fix, like 40 minutes, an hour, or break it up into multiple parts like I've been doing? Go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, I really appreciate you being here, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.